Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about another creation from the house of Azman Perfumes, Where We Used to Live. By the way, I love the name, it's very nostalgic. As many of you guys know, I own many fragrances from this house because of their artistic approach in creating fragrances, not to mention phenomenal perfumers behind this house. I was very excited to get this fragrance because, again, the name of it very much influenced me. And then I was very much interested to see how they approached the note of heliotrope in this fragrance. And I have to say, because many of you guys, whenever I review fragrances, you always talk good about fragrances. Why don't you talk about fragrances that you don't like? Well, this one wasn't a love for me. I can tell you that. And when I got this, when I sprayed it, initially I didn't like it. It was very strong and heady for me, the opening. The heliotrope, there's a big dose of it, and it was very powerful for me. And I actually went on Fragrantica and read a lot of reviews, and actually a lot of people liked this. I read a lot of good reviews about this one. But personally for me, the opening was very harsh, and I wasn't a big fan of that heliotrope on the opening. And so I kind of put it to the side, and of course I sprayed it, and I was like, you know what, this is probably something that's not going to be for me, and I let it go. And a few hours passed because it's a very powerful scent, it's very long lasting. And after a few hours, kept smelling my arm, and I was like, God, this is getting better and better. It's not that bad. And finally, it hit me, and it just took me to a very special place back in the days. And I was like, God, this is actually pretty good. So I came back to it, and I sprayed it on a paper. I was like, maybe on paper it smells different, the opening. And on paper it was worse. The opening was very heady for me, and the heliotrope was just very overpowering, and I had to wait again. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not a big fan of the opening of this fragrance, but I love the dry down of it. It becomes a very beautiful, nostalgic, delicious type of a scent. Where We Used to Live represents the wonderful memories of the past, the pure essence of carefree times, and the pleasant scent of nostalgic days. It is one of the main reasons why I love the name of this scent so much. Indeed, a very nostalgic perfume which can take one back in time when everything was like a fairy tale. Where We Used to Live supposed to remind you of the candy store you used to go when you were a child. Again, it might not have that effect for everyone, but for me, the richness of the mixture reminds me of potpourri. For those who don't know what potpourri is a mixture of dried petals and spices placed in a bowl or a small sack to perfume clothing or a room. I think the mixture and richness of almondy vanilla and rose accord kind of remind me of potpourri. To some, this might remind them of a soft hug from a loved one back home when they used to visit. To some, this might remind them on a spicy, sweet, fruity bubble gum. To some, this might come off very cloying sweet, which kind of did for me, especially on the initial spray. This is a powerhouse scent, and it projects crazy. In general, Where We Used to Live is a sweet vanilla, comforting, floral, musky, woody scent. It definitely has a very unusual structure to it, especially on the opening, but as time goes by and it starts settling on your skin, it becomes very nostalgic, delicious, and comforting. God, this is so strong, you guys. It's beastly. I actually sprayed too many of sprays back there. One would have been enough. This is just beast mode type of a scent. It's very heady on the opening. It's one of those fragrances that when it lingers around, it smells a lot better than when you bring it close, especially on the opening. But as it starts settling on your skin, it becomes really nice. But the opening can be very heady. All right, so where we used to live opens up with a huge dose of heliotrope, which means it opens up very rich, sweet, and slightly powdery. It gives the notes of almond, vanilla, cherry, and a hint of marzipan, if you will. It has this very heady and spicy chord, kind of bitter to it, due to the complex chemical composition of heliotrope. Heliotrope contains compounds like coumarine and vanillin, which contribute to its sweet and spicy facets. Coumarine is responsible for the hay-like sweet aroma, while vanillin imparts a warm vanilla-like note. These compounds, along with other aromatic molecules, create this unique and captivating fragrance profile of heliotrope, giving it its heady and somewhat spicy character. You also get a sweet blend of magnolia, honeysuckle, and blackcurrant combined with heliotrope that reminds you of potpourri. Almond, vanilla, and rose notes add to the richness, which gives the scent a very heady and sharp opening. There's also a big dose of blackcurrant in here, which exudes a rich and tartly sweet aroma, often described as fruity, slightly tangy, and vibrant. Very interesting mixture, which creates almost this very nostalgic candy-like effect, which can remind one of their childhood going to a candy store. It is interesting to know that leaves of blackcurrant, also known as cassis, has a green and ammoniac-like characteristics reminiscent of cat piss. I know this sounds kind of weird, but it actually does that. But that only depends of how much of this chemical compound is used in the formulation. Now in here, there is no cat piss smell, but as always, because I'm very descriptive with my reviews, or explanation of the fragrance, I like to explain to you guys what blackcurrant note on its own really smells like. So it is a very strong kind of a smell, which can sometimes, depending of how much is used, it can have that cat piss kind of a smell to it. You also get this bittersweet profile in the heart of the scent, which has this leathery, soft, intimate with an somewhat earthy base note, which is definitely saffron at play. Now, the saffron complements osmanthus really nicely because osmanthus has this apricot smelling flower-like smell with soft, sensuous, milky, woody, and somewhat leathery nuances. And of course, in the heart, you're greeted with this beautiful rose, which doesn't really smell like rose. Because of all these very strong notes like heliotrope, the big dose of heliotrope you got, saffron, and osmanthus, and blackcurrant. All these notes, when they're mixed with rose, they kind of stop the rose from having its own true characteristics, or I should say its own true personality, but it does show its characteristics a little bit. So it does give the scent its lemony, sweet, and powdery nuances, which complements osmanthus, heliotrope, blackcurrant, and saffron very nicely. And you also have a little bit of jasmine going on in here, which gives or creates an indolic, spacious feel to this fragrance as well. Now, in the base, you got your big dose of vanilla, cypriol oil, patchouli, vetiver, and small dose of Assam Indian oud, which you can barely tell. So there's not a big dose of oud going on in here. So anyone that is hoping to get a big dose of oud in here, you barely can tell, like literally none. I don't really get that. It's just blended so well that you don't really smell the oud in here whatsoever. And of course, you got your white musk, which I definitely smell that on the dry down, which carries the longevity of Where We Used to Live. All right, so all in all, what you get with Where We Used to Live, it is a heady, sweet, fruity, candy-like, citrusy, aromatic, bubblegum-like, floral scent with a big dose of heliotrope, blackcurrant, and vanilla that has a nice big white floral facet to it. On the opening, it is very sharp, spicy, but as it settles down on your skin, it becomes soft, spicy. It is a very powdery, woody, leathery, and earthy fragrance due to patchouli, saffron, and vetiver. Alright, you guys, that's all I have for Where We Used to Live by Azman Perfumes. Again, this one was not a love for me. Out of all the fragrances, I prefer the other ones from this house. This one was very heady for me on the opening, at least. But the dry down, it's beautiful. I always wait for the dry down because that's where the magic happens, at least for me. So anyone that's into heliotrope, they will definitely love this scent. And that's it, you guys. That's all I have. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you guys soon with another video, and bye.